In Stalingrad today, there's lots of local guys who live on the battlefields and who have the hobby of going to dig things up from the war, and then they have these little museums in their houses, and they often also sell what they find on the internet or locally. And I was visiting one of these guys in about 2015, and this was the little museum he had in his garage. And you see he had this half German dog tag that was in very nice condition, and as you know, I'm always interested in dog tags. So I was able to buy it from him and brought it back home. And this is what the dog tag looks like. So it's for an infantry unit. The J, unlike people often think, is actually an I. So you see it's for an infantry company 223 and personal number 392. And German dog tags normally look like this. There's a double information. They can be broken in half. And the theory is that if the soldier is killed in action, the tag is broken in half, the top half remains with the body, and the lower half goes back to the unit headquarters, then back to Berlin, and then is sent back to the family. And if you want to know more information about German dog tags, I've made a whole video about this, so you can look it up. So this ID tag from Stalingrad, you see it only has one hole in it, so it's the lower part of the tag, and that means it's the part that would be sent to unit headquarters if the soldier is killed. Now, people often assume that if there's only half a tag, it means the guy died. That is very wrong. You know, this tag could have been broken in half by a soldier who was surrendering. It could have been broken in half by a kid after the war. Who knows? You can't know if the soldier died or not without actually getting the tag decoded. And it used to be impossible to get these dog tags decoded. The Deutsche Dienststelle archive in Berlin, they're the only people who can decode the tags. And for reasons of protection of personal data, they did not decode dog tags, did not give you the soldier's name. So I had this tag for years and years. And then in 2019, a revolution happened. The Deutsche Dienststelle passed under responsibility of the Bundesarchiv. And all of a sudden it became possible to research these ID tags. So I got this ID tag decoded. And this is the guy's information. So he was killed in action. Let's start by the beginning. The dog tag says it's for this infantry company 223, personal number 392, and sure enough, this is the guy's information. So his name was Heinz Linge, born in 1910 in Dresden, and he was in the 5th Company of Bataillon 64. And he was killed in action. You see IGK, that means Infanterie Geschosskopf, so he was shot in the head on 17 July 1941 in a place called Lisica. And then he was buried, it says, on the road between Lisica and Rakovici. So this is where Lisica is. It's west of Kiev. And this is the Google satellite view, so you can see it's basically in the middle of nowhere. Lisica here, Rakovici here, so he was buried somewhere along this road in July 1941. So of course this begs the question. This ID tag was found by a digger in Stalingrad, so where fighting occurred in the winter 1942-43, whereas the soldier, the owner, Heinz Linge, had been killed in the summer of 1941 in Ukraine. So how did the tag travel 1,000 kilometers after the soldier was killed? Well, I think the reason is the following. Bataillon, that means, you know, German motorcyclist units, like these archetypal guys we see in movies all the time in their sidecars. What's the history of this unit, this Bataillon 64? So we look it up on the internet, on Lexikon der Wehrmacht, a very useful site. And what does it say? It says that in the summer of 1941, the unit was on the southern part of the front. So that makes sense. That's where Heinz Linge was killed during the first weeks of the invasion of Russia, Operation Barbarossa. And then what did the unit do? In the summer of 1942, they were still in the southern fronts, on the Don and the Donets. They attacked in the direction of Stalingrad, and the unit was completely destroyed in Stalingrad in January 1943. So what does that mean? We saw that the lower part of the tag is supposed to be sent to the unit headquarters, so presumably this ID tag was given to the headquarters of the unit in the summer of 1941 after Linge was killed. Then somebody probably kept it in a box or something and brought it all the way to Stalingrad. And a year and a half later, when the unit was destroyed in Stalingrad, the ID tag was lost. It stayed in the ground for 70 years until a digger found it, and then I was able to buy it from him when I was visiting him. So that's interesting. You see the post-mortem traveling of this dog tag 1,000 kilometers in time of war. So that's not something that I expected was possible until I researched this tag. And while we're speaking about the unit, see, these are the lists of Red Cross missing in action for Bataillon 64. And you see everybody's missing in Stalingrad, 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 Stalingrad. You have all these faces of guys who were sent to Stalingrad and never came back. So you can imagine the horrors that this unit went through. And this list is not complete. It's just a partial list. So let's get back to our ID tag. As you know, when I have the name of a soldier and an object that used to belong to him, well, I want to know more about the soldier. I want to research him, find a picture of him, find all the information that I can. And Heinz Linge was from Dresden, and that's bad news because, number one, Dresden is a huge town, so doing research in large towns is always more difficult. And number two, Dresden was completely destroyed in February 1945 by Allied bombing, and lots of their archives were destroyed. So that is not going to be an easy research project. But there's another thing. When you look at the back of his death card, it says that the town hall of Großenhain was informed of his death. So presumably he also has some kind of link with Großenhain. So Großenhain is near Dresden, and it's a small town, so I start over there. I ask them if they know anything about Heinz Linge, and they give me the name of his parents and things who were living in Dresden during the war. And interesting information for me, it says that he was not married, so his next of kin were his parents, and he also had two brothers, Otto Herbert Linge, who lived in Bautzen, and Rudolf Siegfried Linge. And as of now, we're going to just call them Herbert and Siegfried, because that's the names that they were known by. So since he was not married, had no children, my next steps are to try to find the families of his brothers, so that means his nephews and stuff, because maybe they will have pictures or information. So I know he has a brother Herbert in Bautzen, so I send a letter to Bautzen, which is also near Dresden, but they say that they have no information. And then I try Dresden, even though I know it's going to be hard. And I'm actually lucky. In Dresden, they tell me the same information about his parents and stuff. And then they specify that the other brother, so Siegfried Linge, was living in Baden-Baden in the 1940s, where he worked as a cook. So the next step is Baden-Baden. Let's see if we can find a trace of brother Siegfried. And this is where I turn lucky, because in Baden-Baden they have a whole file about this brother Siegfried, because after the war he was trying to get back his German nationality. So something strange is happening here. And this is Siegfried, brother Siegfried's resume. And you see it's rather strange for that time. He's been moving around all over the place. So first he's in Dresden in 1933, then in Baden-Baden. Then in 1934 he's in France, in Aix-les-Bains. Then in Thonon-les-Bains. Then back to Germany in 1935. And then in September 1935 back to France, Aix-les-Bains, Paris, Aix-les-Bains, Paris. So what was he doing? Some of the documents explain a bit. You can see that in Thonon-les-Bains he was studying at a hospitality school. He was working in a Fragonard perfume shop in Paris. He was working in Boulogne-sur-Mer, working in a theater in Lille, working in Paris again. So what was this guy doing? He explains it in the files, and this is where it gets really interesting. I'm not going to read the whole letter or translate it exactly. I'm just going to tell you the gist of it. Basically, he explains that he was sent to France in 1935 on some kind of exchange. And when he came back to Germany, he didn't like what he saw. He didn't like Nazi Germany. He says why. For example, he knew a Jewish tobacco salesman called Francis, and he saw that the SA so the Nazis had beaten him and insulted him. Same thing happened with another Jew he knew, Alexander Levy. His brother Heinz, so the guy who was killed in Ukraine, the guy whose ID tag we have, was the leader of a youth association, and the Nazis prevented that association from existing and forced everybody to go to the Hitler Youths. So he explains that he didn't want to be part of this, so he left Nazi Germany again after a few months and went back to France. And in France he was staying with a Jewish family, the Alatini family in Paris, who were helping political refugees. And he explains that when Germany occupied France, the Alatinis were sent to a concentration camp, and they're still missing today. So basically he was an enemy of the Nazi party, and because of that he decided to go to France, and he lived in France. And then what happened? The war starts in 1939, and he's German. Siegfried is German, so what happens to him? He's sent to an internment camp in Libourne, and then somehow in January 1940 he manages to leave France and go to Port-au-Prince, Haiti. So this guy is originally from Germany, and now he's moving to the Caribbean in 1940, tropical island Haiti. And what does he do there? This is explained now on internet sites about rum. Siegfried Linge meets a woman called Jeanne Barbancourt, who's from a very famous rum-producing family. And they have 2 children, and Siegfried Linge even gets a castle built with the name of his wife on it, you see. And him and his children designed new rums. And now his family still exists today, his grandchildren and stuff, and they're still in Haiti, and they're still producing rum. And the rum that they produce is called Vieux l'Abbé, and you can actually buy it on the internet and stuff. So this guy escapes Germany because he doesn't like the Nazi regime. He ends up marrying a rich family in Haiti, and it's a great success story. His children are still there today, still successfully running the family business. And what's happening in the meantime in Germany? This is Siegfried Linge's card, so brother Siegfried who went to Haiti. The Germans aren't very happy because this is what they say. Since 1935 he's been living in France and has been ignoring his draft orders, so the German embassy in Paris has decided to remove his nationality. So Siegfried Linge escapes to Haiti, and the Nazi regime removes his nationality, so now he has no nationality. He's stateless, living in Haiti. And this is where the story becomes really interesting. After the war, Siegfried tries to get his nationality back. That's why this whole file exists. And he's asked to show proof that his story is true. And remember, he had a second brother, Herbert, that I didn't manage to track down. And now brother Herbert is writing a letter to confirm that the story of brother Siegfried is true. And what was brother Herbert doing during the war? Can you imagine? His brother is a political refugee, and what's he? He is an SS officer. And what does he say in this letter to confirm what Siegfried is saying? He says, "It's true that my brother Siegfried was an enemy of the Nazi regime. He preferred to fight it out in France and Haiti instead of enjoying the privileges that would have been given to him in Nazi Germany. I, as an SS officer, was in France during the war, and I myself saw my brother's name on the lists of wanted people." So can you imagine that? One brother escapes Nazi Germany, and the other one is an SS officer and is finding the name of his own brother on the lists of missing. So one brother ends up on a tropical island with a great success story, and in the meantime the other brother is sent to Ukraine with the infantry. He's shot through the head after a few weeks. His body is buried somewhere in the country and is never found. It's still buried in an unmarked grave in Ukraine today. And then there's the entire unit of his brother is wiped out. And then the other brother joins one of the most infamous organizations of the 20th century, responsible for the Holocaust, etc., the SS. And also their hometown of all of them is destroyed. So basically this Siegfried Linge who went to Haiti In the war, he lost one of his brothers, he lost his nationality, his hometown is destroyed. And these are the stories of the three brothers, so very different stories. And this shows how personal choice can have a great influence in your life. It's kind of like a butterfly effect. This Siegfried, he goes to France for a few months. Presumably he sees French news, he hears lots of bad things about the Nazis. When he goes back to Nazi Germany, he doesn't like it, so he escapes to France and then to Haiti. And in the meantime, his brothers who had stayed in Germany, they become part of the military system. One of them is killed, and another one joins what is now, or what was classified after the war as a criminal organization, the SS. So thanks to his personal choice, Siegfried had a successful life, and his family, nowadays his descendants, are still enjoying the fruits of his success. So a very interesting family story that all comes to light thanks to this ID tag that was found in Stalingrad. So here I am overlooking Lake Geneva, and in the background is Nebe, where Siegfried Linge was a student in 1933. And here I have the identification tag of Heinz Linge, so that was buried in Russia for 70 years. And here I have a bottle of rum, Willy from Haiti, that's now made by Siegfried Linge's grandchildren. So this comes from the Eastern Front, this comes from Haiti, the story of two brothers that were separated by the war. So I'm going to have a drink to the memory of the Linge family, the three brothers, and all the victims of World War II. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you need any help for research projects, you can always send me an email at the email that's written underneath.